Our country is in the middle of confusion right now. We are dealing with a pandemic, economic recovery, and now George Floyd protest. On May 25th, 2020, 46-year-old black man George Floyd died in Minneapolis, Minnesota, after a white police officer, Derek Chauvin, knelt on Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes while Floyd was handcuffed face down in the street. When people saw the video clip on the media, people were outraged and started to protest in major cities of the United States. Many of the protests led to riots, and as I was watching the riots, they brought back bad memories of LA riot that occurred on April 29, 1992. Four officers were not found guilty of excessively beating Rodney King. The incident was videotaped and viewed widely in TV broadcast. In anger, people started a riot in South Central. I'm sure most of you remember people beating a truck driver named Reginald Danny. The riot spread to Koreatown. And many businesses were looted, vandalized, and burned. Many Korean Americans who came here with American dreams were shattered in a few hours because of the riot. Police and National Guards were blocking the West Los Angeles, and Korean American business owners had to arm themselves with weapons to protect their businesses. My friend's parents' business was burned to the ground during this time, and I'm sure most of you know at least one person who was affected by the LA riot. There were racial tensions between African Americans and Korean American communities before the riot. Due to the cultural and language barriers, many of the African Americans felt disrespected and humiliated by many Korean merchants. Also, many African Americans were upset that the Korean merchants were not contributing back to the black communities. To escalate the problem, on March 16, 1991, a year before the LA riots, storekeeper Sunja Du shot and killed black ninth grader Latasha Harlins. Du was sentenced to 5 years of probation with 400 hours of community service and a $500 fine. Many people at that time were criticizing the media, trying to make it into a racial issue between African Americans and Korean Americans, rather than between white Americans and African Americans. After the LA riot, there have been efforts to build healthy relationships between African Americans and Korean Americans. Leaders of both communities have been trying to bridge the cultural and language gap between both communities. George Floyd protests did not cause significant damages in Koreatown, but it caused riots and lootings throughout the United States. Many are disgusted with injustice in this country and want to see a change in the system. I would like to share my thoughts as our country is facing a crisis. First, all lives matter. Sixth commandment of the 10 commandments is, "You shall not murder." We are created in God's image. Human life is so precious and valuable that one of the 10 commandments tells us not to murder another human being. Black lives matter, white lives matter, Hispanic lives matter, and Asian lives matter. All lives matter in God. The definition of racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. As believers, as Christians, we need to treat other races with respect. Thinking that our race is superior to other races is not the right way of showing love to our neighbors. We all need to be the salt and light of the world by showing proper respect for other races. As disciples of Jesus Christ, We want to spread the love of Christ to our neighbors. Second, we need more leaders such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I personally appreciate what civil rights movement leaders have accomplished in the past. I think we should all thank for their dedication and services. They paved the road for all minorities to have certain rights. We are in a desperate time when we need leaders who can lead young people to protest in a proper way, to stand up for their beliefs. We need leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for the people, not for his political gain. We need leaders who promote healing and positive changes rather than promoting revenge and destruction. Romans 12:21 says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Third, we need to pray for the police officers. It is wrong what the white officer did to George Floyd. George Floyd did not deserve to die like that. Justice needs to be served for those officers. However, not all police officers are bad. We don't understand what type of criminals they face every day. As a teacher, I see all types of students. Some of the students are out of control. They have no respect for the authorities and school policies. Police officers are dealing with the worst of the worst, risking their lives. We cannot tolerate police brutality, but we must also remember that they have families of their own and they also need to protect themselves. We need to pray that these officers use wisdom and courage to protect the people without brutality. We need police officers who truly protect and rescue the fatherless, poor, and oppressed from the wicked people. Psalm 82 verses 3 to 4 says, "Defend the cause of the weak and fatherless, maintain the rights of the poor and oppressed, rescue the weak and needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked." Let's pray that our police officers will follow through these two verses. Finally, there is no perfect government or political system on this earth. Communism has failed. Socialism has failed. Capitalism is also failing. We live in a country of democracy. However, the danger of democracy is that whatever the majority believes, that becomes a law. We will continue to live in an imperfect, sinful society. We live in a sinful world. We are all sinners, and people will continue to commit crimes and continue to be racist. It will be impossible to get rid of racism completely. People will try to change the system, but it will be impossible to change everyone's heart and their beliefs. However, we have hope. When our King Jesus Christ comes back and he becomes our ruler, we will be able to live in a world where there is no injustice, and we will live in a perfect, sinless world. We believers need to continue to live as salt and light of the world. During this dark period, we need to show kindness to one another. I would like to end my presentation with reading Psalm 145:13. Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your dominion endures through all generations. The Lord is trustworthy in all he promises and faithful in all he does. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.